My dear viewers, hello and welcome to a new episode of our program Africa Today. My name is Ahmed. We start from the news from Egypt. Well, Egypt announced keenness on advancing the environmental cooperation in Africa at the African Ministerial Conference on the Environment. Senna, Minister of Environment Yasmin Fuad's statements in Nairobi also said during the event that Egypt advocates for climate resilience and sustainable development across Africa. Dr. Yasmin Fuad resigned earlier on Sunday after she was appointed as Executive Secretary of the UN to combat the desertification. More on the talks in the following report.
Cairo reaffirmed its leadership in shaping Africa's environmental agenda during the 20th African Ministerial Conference on the Environment, AMCEN, held in Nairobi from the 14th to the 18th of July 2025. Environment Minister Yasmin Fuad headed Egypt's delegation, using the forum to strengthen bilateral partnerships and advocate for climate resilience and sustainable development across the continent. On the sidelines of the conference, Fuad met with Somalia's Minister of Environment and Climate Change, General Bashir Jama, to explore cooperation in climate change adaptation, combating desertification, and building institutional capacity. Fuad reiterated commitment to supporting Somalia and other African countries in addressing shared environmental challenges. Jama praised Egypt's leadership during COP27 and welcomed the proposal to sign a new Memorandum of Understanding aimed at launching joint projects and introducing sustainable technologies. In a separate high-level meeting, Fuad met with Ambassador Luis Vallas, chair of the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee on Plastic Pollution. She highlighted the urgent need to develop a binding international treaty to tackle plastic waste and pollution. Fuad pointed out to progress, including the adoption of Extended Producer Responsibility (EPR) for plastic bags, and stressed the importance of establishing an intergovernmental process backed by independent financing mechanisms to secure treaty effectiveness. Fuad also held discussions with EU Commissioner for the Environment Jessica Roswell on topics including water and food security as well as plastic pollution. She emphasized AMCEN's critical role in uniting African nations through collective dialogue and joint action to address environmental challenges.
Well, to shed more light on this, we have the pleasure to have with us over the phone our dear guest, Dr. Sherin Ahmed Baradei, Associate Professor and Expert in Environmental Affairs, Water Engineering and Space. She's also professional at the UN Office of Outer Space Affairs and Project Space for Water. Good afternoon, Doctor.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Well, Doctor, Egypt have advanced environmental cooperation in Africa during AMCEN summit in Nairobi. So how would you list the benefits from environmental cooperation in Africa?
Actually, this is going to strengthen the regional cooperation. Environmental challenges like drought, deforestation, and water scarcity are transboundary. Joint projects encourage African nations to work together, promoting regional stability and shared solutions. Number two, leveraging collective expertise and resources. Joint initiatives allow countries to pool technical knowledge, funding, and manpower. This is especially beneficial for countries with limited resources, ensuring that even the most vulnerable states can access solutions. Number three, accelerating scalable impact. Collaboration means that successful approaches in one country can be replicated or adapted elsewhere, creating a multiple effect in combating climate change and promoting sustainable development. And last, which is number four, enhancing access to climate finance. Donors and development institutions often prioritize collaborative and cross-border projects, making joint initiatives more attractive for funding under global mechanisms like the Green Climate Fund.
Yes. So, Doctor, how can Africa be climate resilient in the environmental challenges, and also given the fact that the continent is the least contributor of pollution?
Actually, let me put it that way.
Yes.
It could actually prioritize. Actually, could you please? I'm so sorry. Could you please repeat the
Yes,
question
the
again?
African continent is the least responsible for the pollution of water or the climate change. What's your comment on this?
Actually, yes, but we have to build climate resilience. Technologies such as solar power, water pumps, climate-smart irrigation, drought-resistant crops, etc. And this also is going to protect the water at the same time, supporting low-carbon development, enabling early warning and disaster preparedness. And now we do have, actually, the Space Agency is working on that because they do have many satellites, empowering local economics. All of that actually is going to enhance what you are talking about.
What are the reasons behind the water pollution in Africa?
Yes, this is a very important, actually, question to ask. People, the first thing is people, they do have to understand the importance of water.
Yes.
Because the pollution of water in Africa harms the aquatic life. Contamination of drinking water, the plastic waste plugs, contamination of fresh water sources like rivers, lakes, and wells, all of that, we do have it from resources like, for example, people and industries that drop pollutant in the water in the Nile River, polluting the groundwater, the disruption of fisheries and livelihoods, actually, the flooding in urban areas, the spread of waterborne disease, the damage to tourism and ecosystem, and all of this also is going to have economic cost, which is a disadvantage. Yes. So we have to have a limited waste management capacity, and people have to work together in order to actually save each and every drop of the water.
Yes. Doctor, also in the same point, how would you list the effects of the plastic pollution of the water in Africa?
Plastic pollution is very important. Why? Because the plastic, it's not only, we hear about microplastics, okay?
Yes,
this
yes.
is very, very important. The plastics that are there, we could put them in landfills and dig down in landfills and put them. But there are things that called microplastics, which are about 3 millimeters in length. Those, if you are gonna drop plastics in the Nile River, they are going to actually be deteriorating. After a while. They are becoming microplastics. And whatever is in the Nile also goes to the sea. So we have both pollution in the Nile and at the sea. And what is the problem of the microplastics? It's very, very small, so that the organisms of the aquatic life, I mean fisheries, etc., they are going to eat it, and we do have the life cycle and life chain. We eat this after that. So our bodies is going to be full of microplastics, and now it is known and proven that the microplastics not only in the water alone, no, it did actually go to the atmosphere. So it evaporates with the water to the atmosphere, and this actually was recorded by NASA from their new mission that was actually ignited to space.
Yes, and how can Africa commit the global polluters in order to finance the climate resilience schemes?
You're talking about the finances? Yes. Speak with one unified voice. Africa has to speak with one unified voice through platforms like the African Group of Negotiators, African Union, and the AMICOM. Frame climate finance as a justice issue. Emphasize the polluter pays principle, that those who cause the most emissions must pay for the damage. Highlight Africa's low emissions but high vulnerability, turning the focus from clarity to climate justice and historical responsibility. Use international platforms strategically. Push strongly at UN Climate Conference, which is the COP, for financing of adaptation loss and damage technology transfer. support the Loss and Damage Fund and ensure African countries benefit directly from it. And number 4, build alliances with other vulnerable countries. This is very important. Join forces with groups like G7, 7 plus China, least developed countries, LDGC's group, alliance of small island states. These coalitions amplify Africa's voice in global negotiation and increase pressure on high-emission countries. And number 5, leverage moral and diplomatic pressure. Use moral arguments and global media. Media is very important, like you do now, to hold major polluters publicly accountable. Showcase the human cost of climate change in Africa: flood, drought, hunger, displacement. Push for reform of climate finance mechanisms, like advocate for easier direct access to funds like the Green Climate Fund and Adaptation Fund. Push for funding that is grant-based, predictable and long-term and locally accessible. Number 7, engage in legal and normative advocacy, like support global legal efforts, International Court of Justice advisory opinion on climate justice that can create pressure on wealthy nations. Push for binding commitments at international forums rather than vague pledges. And last but not least, number 8, invest in transparent project readiness, like ensure African governments prepare bankable, transparent, and locally relevant projects. This builds trust and attracts both public and private climate finance.
Yes, I thank you very much for your time. Thank you for your valuable information. Dr. Sherin Ahmed Baradei, expert in environmental affairs, water engineering, and space. We really had the pleasure to have this one with you. Well, Egypt have taken part in the G20 finance ministers and central bank governors meeting in South Africa. The discussions have focused on macroeconomic developments and the global financial architecture and Africa's development priorities. More in the following report.
Hassan Abdullah, governor of the Central Bank of Egypt (CBE), headed Egypt's delegation at the 3rd G20 Finance Ministers and Central Bank Governors meeting, FMCBG, hosted by South Africa on the 17th to the 19th of July. The Egyptian delegation included Yasser Sobhi, Deputy Minister of Finance for Fiscal Policies, Minnatullah Farid, CBE Assistant Governor for External Relations, and Ala Abdurrahman, Advisor to the Minister of Finance for International Institutions. Abdullah participated in discussions covering macroeconomic developments, the global financial architecture, sustainable finance, Africa's development priorities, and issues relating to the financial sector and financial inclusion. During these sessions, Abdullah highlighted ongoing pressures on the global economy resulting from heightened geopolitical tensions and trade conflicts, stressing the urgent need for coordinated and balanced monetary and fiscal policies to preserve macroeconomic stability. He underscored the importance of anchoring inflation expectations and enhancing liquidity management as key foundations for building economic resilience. Abdullah also stressed the need for comprehensive reform of the global financial architecture, particularly to strengthen the voice and representation of African countries. Further, Abdullah called for expanding access to concessional and blended finance for developing countries, stressing the need for nationality-led frameworks. He said such that align external funding with domestic development priorities. He also highlighted the importance of harmonizing environmental classifications across jurisdictions and developing risk-sharing tools to attract more sustainable and green investments. In discussing Africa's development, Abdullah underlined the need to deepen local financial markets and broaden the adoption of advanced technologies, including artificial intelligence, to improve productivity and enhance the quality of financial services. He emphasized that public-private partnerships are critical to delivering strategic infrastructure projects, particularly those with cross-border dimensions that can advance regional integration and trade.
The UN have warned that humanitarian crisis in Sudan is worsening amid escalating violation in Kordofan and Darfur. It said hundreds have been killed in ongoing fighting in both regions, with aid workers warning of limited access to assistance. More in the following report.
The United Nations said more than 450 civilians, including at least 35 children, were killed during the weekend of July 12th in attacks in villages surrounding the town of Bara in North Kordofan province. Mercy Corps Country Director for Sudan, Kadri Forani, said the suffering in Kordofan deepens with each passing day. He said communities are trapped along active and fast-changing front lines, unable to flee, unable to access basic needs or life-saving assistance. Sudan plunged into war after simmering tensions between the army and its rival, the Paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, or RSF, escalated to fighting in April 2023. The violence has killed at least 40,000 people and created one of the world's worst displacement and hunger crises, according to humanitarian organizations. In recent months, much of the fighting has been concentrated in the Darfur and Kordofan regions. On Thursday, the UN Human Rights Office confirmed that since July 10, the RSF has killed at least 60 civilians in the town of Bara, while civil society groups reported up to 300 people were killed.
Well, with this, ladies and gentlemen, we come to the end of this episode of our program, Africa Today. My name is Ahmed Mukhtar. Thank you for watching.